Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Career Capital Collective podcast. Today, I am so excited to be joined by Madison. And Madison, why don't you quickly introduce yourself and a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. My name is Madison, and I am our head of people and talent at a tech startup in Austin, Texas. But I also founded the Career Lab, which is a career coaching and resource company to help job seekers and career switchers find a job faster.
Love that. And Madison and I connected actually over Instagram. As you know, the Career Capital, we've been helping to empower women and other folks and help them kind of learn actionable skills and advice to advance their careers. So it was a perfect kind of synergistic meeting of Madison, especially as someone who not only has worked in HR, but now has her own company. So thank you so much for joining us. Now, the topic that we're going to talk about today is one that we've gotten a lot of requests about, and it is about networking. So, can you tell us, Madison, like what essentially is networking and why is it so important?
Yeah. So networking is the thing that I talk about the most because I think regardless of if you're job searching, happy in your career, or think you might want to pivot, it really is going to be your greatest tool. And I'm big on data. So I'll give like one fact of why I like networking so much. 2 to 3% of cold applications actually get you a job. And I personally have never gotten a job from a cold application. I have only gotten jobs from networking, which might be why I'm also just so passionate about it because I've come across some really cool opportunities and positions through it. But really, what networking is it is building relationships. And I think a lot of times people think it's asking someone for something,
Mhm.
it's salesy or it's cringy. Good networking is not. It is really just building relationships like you would friendships, like you would someone in a community, but in a professional space. So you're meeting people on platforms like LinkedIn or Slack channels, or you're meeting them at conferences or in real life situations. And it can even be birthday parties and social events that might not feel professional, but they really are opportunities to network and meet people. And the best network you're going to build is when you're not asking them for something or being salesy and you're just genuinely interested in who they are as people and making the connections. And that is what real networking is. It's not asking for something.
I love that because we had some folks actually reach out to us and say, hey, I want to learn more about networking, but I don't want it to feel uncomfortable or feel kind of like cringy as if I'm asking for something. So I think that's a really good way of framing it. And can you actually dive into that a little bit? Like, what does it mean to like reach out and to have a networking conversation with somebody that doesn't feel like you're asking for something?
In any scenario, when you are starting a new network connection, whether it's a warm connection, which I would consider a past manager, coworker, or it's more of a like second degree connection, which is you both went to the same college, but maybe not at the same time, or you both worked at this company, but again, didn't know each other at the company. That's a slightly further tethered connection, but you have a common thread. And then
Mhm.
there is more of the cold networking, which I actually really do believe works and a
Hmm.
lot of people are more skeptical of. And it's
Right.
where they don't know who you are. You don't have like this big commonality like a university or job. You don't have any overlapping network connection on LinkedIn, but they can still be a connection that you can make and that
Right.
you can build. But to your question of like, what do you do when you reach out? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to find something personal about them. A lot of
Right.
people think they need to come in strong of like, this is all of my credentials. These are all the reasons you should talk to me. That is more likely to get ignored because they're seeing that more and people by nature want to talk about themselves. So if you
Right.
lead, I saw that you just made this LinkedIn post and I really love
Wow.
it. Or if you say, hey, I saw that you had this position. That's something I'm really aspiring to do. How did you get there? People are going to be immediately complimented, which
Right.
already is a better response psychologically. And then second, they're going to be the response you're asking for is for them to talk about themselves, which is a better in for you. So then from there, that is like one step of networking. And you're either going to get on a call for that, or it might be you'll continue the exchange through LinkedIn or Slack platform or like any like messaging platform. But then after that, if there is a role open at that company, or if there's someone that there's not one now, but you want to keep in touch with, that's where you kind of pitch yourself. But it's only after you've had one outreach, you've had a call, and now you're keeping that connection warm. So that's when you would lead with, I've really enjoyed our conversation. These were some key takeaways. So again, keep it personal. It
Mhm.
doesn't sound like AI gave you this generic response, but I really like these three takeaways. Like, if you'd be comfortable, I saw that you actually have a role open at your company. Would you be open referring me? Or could you let me know who the recruiter is on the role? And you want it to always sound conversational and casual,
Right.
but it's only after those first two steps have happened that you ask for the referral. And it can be stressful if you want a job like yesterday. And you're like, well, I just want to ask them for the referral. I don't want to take 5 to 7 days to send this and then get on the call, but you're just more likely to get a positive response and to
Mhm.
actually get a foot in the door if you take those steps.
I really like that answer because I think it helps to kind of manage expectations around what the process looks like, almost like a sales funnel. So maybe if you could kind of like itemize out the steps in this, like, do you mind walking us through like how to go from maybe like say a cold call conversation or like a cold outreach? How would you start it? And then what would be the next step and to get to that place?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I was in someone's shoes today that had never worked and they just wanted to get started, I have like a 5 step framework that I use. And I'll walk you through all of this because I think it's really important. And I think people don't do step 1 or 2 almost ever. But the first step is you're going to get crystal clear on what you want to do. Whether you're currently in a job, unemployed, looking to career switch, really think about, what do I want my life to feel like? What do I want my role to look like? What impact do I want to make? Do I care more about role flexibility, or do I really want to be in person and I just want to go and grow as fast as I can and make as much money as I can? Like, figure
Right.
out what your priorities are and what you really want, and then align that to what your skills are. So, what do you naturally find that you're passionate about, you're talented at? That is going to be like your identity and your personal brand. And step 2 is you are going to identify 10 to 20 companies that you would like to work for.
Mhm.
Whether it's you admire their mission, you love the product they're building, you like what they stand for, whatever it is, list 10 to 20 companies. They don't need to be hiring, just 10 to 20 that you love. And then also figure out 5 to 10 roles that match your number one. So this is step number 2. And if you don't know titles, this is where you can leverage AI. Give them your answers to number one and say, what do these attributes, these skills align for in a role title? And it will give you those answers. So that's like your step 2. And then number 3, which you always need to do before you ever send that cold message, is then reflect that onto your LinkedIn. It is who you are in the recruiting world. I don't know any recruiter that does not look at a LinkedIn as soon as they get a resume, as soon as they get an outreach message. It really is your identity. So it's huge to have who you are reflected on there. And I think so many people spend so much time on a resume and an application, but in reality, your LinkedIn is the source of truth. And a lot of recruiters, after they look at your resume, will double check your LinkedIn to make sure what you said on your resume is actually true. And you did
Wow.
there and you did do this. Yeah, it's crazy. So LinkedIn is like, I can't talk enough about it. That and networking is like my top 2. But you're going to want to reflect that clear personality. Like, what is your personal brand? What are you targeting? And who are you? Like, what skill are you bringing? And in today's job market, it's actually more important to have a super focused identity versus this large general overview of skills, because right now AI is filtering out a lot of those general skills. So if you can show that you are this specific person solving this specific problem, when a recruiter goes to your LinkedIn, if you're solving their problem, there's like an aha moment in their head and they're like, yes, that's who I've been looking for. So having that match number one and what you want to do is crucial. And then step 4, you get to the outreach message, because you need to have all of those in place so that you're reaching out to the right people. As soon as you reach out, they're going to look at your LinkedIn. So if you're reaching out and your LinkedIn isn't ready for them, you're not likely to get a response, or they're less likely to be interested. So you're just wasting those outreach messages. So you're
Wow.
going to make those steps first. And then for networking, you are going to go to your company list, and you're now going to go to LinkedIn, search your company name. Then you're going to click the company name and go to people. And it's like a
Yeah.
people tab is in the center to the bottom. And then you are going to search by recruiters,
Hmm.
hiring managers for your role, and then anyone in your title. So you don't just have to reach out to a recruiter or hiring manager. If you want to also reach out to someone with your same title or on your same team, they're likely going to be able to get you to the right person. They're going to know their team's hiring, or they're going to know who their HR rep is. and they're going to be able to get you to that right person. So that's going to be how you figure out who you reach out to. And AI can help with this more and more. It has a little trouble scraping profiles right now. I think that will change before we know it, but it can help support that search. But then from there, you're going to draft your message. And this is where you're going to send, I would target at least 5 a week at first, and you're going to make it really personal. You're going to pull something off of their profile. If you do have a commonality, always lean in, and it can be big or small. It can be that you live in the same state as them. It could be
Right.
the same school, that you went to their old company, anything. Just find something that shows you looked at it and that you're like making a connection.
That you
And
both have dogs or
yeah, like, and if you saw the post that they made, and it could be something so out of left field, and just be like, oh, I resonated with this. Like anything that shows
right,
you actually took the time to look at their LinkedIn and connect with who they are as a person,
right,
then always, always, always leave it open ended. You want to give them something that is really easy to respond to. You don't want them to have to go research it or look at your profile to answer it. And you don't want it to just be like, I really resonated with your post. Thank you for sharing. You're going to like it and not do anything with that. Like you need to leave it open ended so that they respond. And that's when you start to then build that relationship and ask
wow,
for like 5 to 10 minutes, or you can even end that first outreach, which I do really recommend as well. Of like, I really resonated with this post about your role. I'm actually thinking about going into that field. Would you have 5 to 10 minutes to share your experience in that position with me? And then it's like, they know you're looking to go in there. They get to talk about themselves. It's
right.
still a compliment because you're looking to go into what they are doing. And then that gets you a foot in the door that way.
Those are all great steps. I think it's difficult for people to think about the end-to-end process because it can feel quite overwhelming. So you had mentioned very clear and actionable steps, which I think would be great. And just for our listeners out there, we are going to collaborate with Madison and give you guys some access to both her profile, her Instagram profile, which has links to her bio. And so she can kind of help walk us through what to do and what not to do. So that was the what to do. Do you also can tell us a little bit about what not to do? Like, what are some common mistakes that you've seen in networking that you would avoid doing at all costs?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first one is to just be afraid to start in the first place. A lot of people do not do it at all. I think that's been something, the more and more clients I work with, it's just really uncomfortable to put yourself out on LinkedIn and make posts. It's uncomfortable to comment. It's uncomfortable to reach out to people who don't know you. And I have worked with people who are coming out of school, and I've worked with people who have been in their careers for 15 years, and they
Wow.
still will be like, I have to reach out to somebody that I don't know. So I think is like one thing is that they don't think it matters enough to get over the hump and the fear of it. And they think they just apply to enough jobs, it'll be okay. And it's really just not the case anymore.
Right.
And the other very common mistake I see is asking for something right away. The market itself, it's like a lot of people need a job very quickly, and it can feel like I had mentioned earlier, like I just need to keep asking and putting myself out there. And
Right.
like taking that one step back and just getting to know them, giving them a moment to see them as a person is going to
Mhm.
be more helpful than just pitching yourself, including your resume and saying all the reasons why you're a great fit, and then asking them to refer you at the end when
Right.
they've never met you. And I think that's probably one of the most common mistakes that I see in networking is just always asking people for things when it really does need to be more of a natural conversation. They're probably the two biggest that I see.
That's a really good one. I think it can often come off self serving and impersonal and maybe even a bit cold if you're just reaching out asking for something, even if your intention is not coming from there. So I really like the way that you're blending the idea of networking kind of with relationship building, which I think is so important, especially if you want to learn about the culture of the company, get to know the people you're going to work with. Like, I think it feels more intentional that you weren't just like, oh, go throw spaghetti at a wall and hope something sticks. It's like, no, 10 to 20 companies feels quite focused and niche. So
Yeah.
I guess like to lean into that a little bit, why 10 to 20? Like, where did that number come from?
The 10 to 20 really comes from two elements. One, you want a wide scope of what you want to do because there's not always going to be job openings at each of these.
Right.
So that's why that is larger than your title list. Like you might honestly have 3 to 5 titles and positions that you're targeting. You might not even get to that 10 for titles, but company wise, the goal of that list and what you want to do with that list ultimately is you want to follow those companies. You want to find people to follow on LinkedIn in there, and you want to stay current with what they're doing. Staying current with any more than 10 to 20 gets to be a lot. But if you go smaller than 10, there's going to be many points in time where all 10 of those companies might not hire for your role. So
Right.
if you're only targeting those and you're like, I want to go into a lifestyle marketing role, and you're just watching these 10 roles for that role to pop up, it could be a while for that to come up. So that's why you want to widen your scope for those 20, and you're more likely to have at some point, if you're following them, watching those managers, staying connected with the hiring managers in the roles you want, then you're going to see those roles pop up. And even in the job search, realistically, you're going to need to go well beyond that 20, Kaylee, for who you're applying to. But it's just a good rule of thumb for companies to keep a pulse of that
Yeah.
you can just follow and stay current with.
I think that's great advice. It's interesting something that you mentioned earlier about how the landscape is changing from a jobs perspective and a market perspective. It's funny because I've also never applied for a job through LinkedIn and gotten a role. It's always been through some sort of warm intro. And I was talking to my boss and he's like, yeah, I've never applied for a job, period. So, I'm thinking back to when I was applying for roles like fresh out of school, like 15 years ago. So, what's the market kind of looking like now and how is AI playing a role?
Yeah. So the market is changing a lot. And I think a big misconception is that it's changing a lot because companies are doing more layoffs, there's less roles, and there's more job seekers.
Hmm,
And I do think that is true, but there's other elements that are starting to become more and more prominent that are forcing people to change how they think about the job search. AI is a huge factor of this. And it's not just AI is replacing your job and making it redundant. I think that's what people think of with AI in the job search. But
interesting.
there are platforms with AI that will go and apply for you. So
Wow.
candidates can put in their resume, they can put in what they're looking for, what they're targeting. And then in the back end, while they're sleeping, while they're working, doing whatever they're doing, it will just be rapid firing and applying. So some candidates will have 300, 500, up to 3,000 applications that they are sending. They think volume will get them more opportunities. The downside is one, that's less likely to happen because again, that 2 to 3% of cold applications actually land a position, which is crazy low. So they're less likely to get a job from those, even if it's 3,000. But what it's doing on the hiring landscape on the back end for people like me in recruiting is it's making our roles inundated with candidates. So we'll open a role, and I used to get 50 to 75 in like a week period because they'd be really tailored. People would be applying. I'll get about 448 hours and we'll have to shut down the system. And I'm not the only one who is doing this. I just, as you know, Kaylee went to an HR conference with recruiters, and it was a common theme of how are you keeping up with the volume? Because
Wow.
they're just automatically applying, and candidates don't even know that they've applied to your company because these AI tools are just
Oh
doing it for you.
my
So we
God.
have to close down our jobs after like 2 days. So job postings aren't staying live as long. We cannot physically get through all of those. So you rely on AI again to filter it out. You could have really qualified candidates that you just never look at because we can't get through that volume. And then what ultimately happens is that like pushes recruiting teams to just do the sourcing because
Right.
finding a needle in a haystack of 400 plus applicants is almost harder than my team going to LinkedIn and being like, I'm going to go find and source and use a Boolean search and use my tools to find the best candidate. And
Wow.
that's where people are being pushed more. And even our company, we probably fill around 85 to 90% through people me and my team source and through referrals internally.
It makes a lot of sense. It's almost like there's different paths happening now. It's like AI versus AI in the general application section. And then it's the people that are able to take the third door or kind of strategize a way to build those relationships that are going to be the ones that get noticed. I guess the question I get a lot of is, do people actually look at cover letters and resumes?
Yeah. So I think No to cover letters. I think with everything in the way it's going and just recruiters being swamped with what they're getting through,
Yeah.
cover letters are really going away. And a lot of times it is just a longer written form of your resume,
Right.
which is also LinkedIn. And then
Yeah.
LinkedIn is a more living, easy to read, easy to follow. If you're a recruiter, it's a lot more enjoyable to look through LinkedIn than it is a cover letter. No offense to the best cover letter out there. It's just a lot more fun to like go and see and like see their picture and like look at what they're doing in real time. So it's really the next natural step from their resume. It's not a cover letter. And
Right.
resumes, I will say for our team, even it is second to LinkedIn, but
Wow.
it is needed. So I
Yes.
still am a huge promoter of you need to have a good resume. You need to make sure that it is built to get past the AI system within an applicant tracking system. So you need to make sure it's doing that so that you don't get filtered out before a human ever sees you and then you don't even get a chance. So you need to have it set up for that. And it needs to clearly show that you're professional, you're
Right.
results driven, you've made an impact. It still needs to do all of those pieces, but it used to be the one main element for how you got moved on. And I would say that is like a co part with LinkedIn because LinkedIn is just so huge now.
So on that, I have two follow-up questions. The first is LinkedIn is obviously the most important thing. So where does someone go when they're like, hey, I don't know how to even update my profile? Like, are there resources available through either your coaching services or something where they can figure out how to create a good LinkedIn profile?
Yeah. So I definitely do that through my coaching services. And it's something that is like almost always part of what I do with any client that comes to me, even if they are mostly wanting to do networking. Like I mentioned, it's one of the key steps of that. So like we'll start there and I'll really walk through the full LinkedIn optimization.
Wow,
So
great.
profile picture, banner, what title to put. And your title should never be your job title. It should always be skills you represent. And if you're job searching, the last part of your title should always be what you're looking to go into. It is like the first thing recruiters look at. So that is key real estate on the LinkedIn profile. So you want to have that updated. We'll go through your about section and then also your professional history. And then I do always equip people with what to post when they're getting started
Wow.
because posting on LinkedIn, even one day a week, can do so much. I could talk about it
Wow.
all day, but it's so much more visible to recruiters. When they go look at your profile, they see that you're active and passionate about what you do, and they get to see a little taste of who you are as a person because people want to hire people they want to work with. So they
Wow.
get to see all of this. So we'll do all of that in my coaching services. I also have a digital product if you're just wanting to like get started today, plug and play, and it has like the exact framework of what to do. So like filling out your title, your banner, and it breaks down exactly how to build out your profile.
That's great. So we'll definitely give you guys resources to this. And then, like, when we post the episode, we'll make it visible because I think it can be overwhelming for folks if they're, starting from scratch or they're nervous to even do it. Like, how do I know all of these rules? Like, how do I actually implement them? So, having an actionable framework, I think, is very value added. And I'm even taking mental notes now saying, wow, there's things that you don't even think about, right? If you're more on the I'm applying side versus the recruiting side.
Yes, 100%. And I think there's so much information out there too. It's hard to know what's real. I had a call with a client on Friday that I actually met through my Instagram, Kaylee, and she just did LinkedIn. That's all we did for her. She's like, I just went a LinkedIn session where we go through my whole profile. So we took an hour and she had 100 followers or 100 connections. You can have followers and connections on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, but she
Hmm.
had 100 connections. And she'd been told by a professor to keep it low, to keep it 100 or less,
Oh my.
because it needs to be only people in the role that you want to go into or that would be hiring for the roles. Whereas LinkedIn, they reward you if you're above 500. They don't reward you anymore after that. Like if you hit 2000, it doesn't matter.
Really?
There's a 500 threshold that shows that you're active, you're real, you're really part of the LinkedIn community. And
Right.
it's more likely to push you out when you're a recruiter searching or looking through the algorithm. So you want to hit that 500 connection mark. And they were at 100 and trying to stay there because they're like, my professor told me stay really low. So
Nice.
I just think it's tough too. There's so much out there and it's hard when people aren't in an applicant tracking system every day, like recruiters are. Like I am
Right.
not living in LinkedIn. in the way that I do. It's just tough to understand the true value of your profile and networking and all of these things. But it definitely can be overwhelming if you don't know where to start and you're getting also a flood of different tips and advice.
And especially, I know we had talked about this earlier, but I do know a ton of folks that have been laid off, like good friends of mine, especially in tech. And I think a lot of us who got jobs many years ago that were in these jobs for a long time, if they're losing them now, it's you're coming into a different kind of playing arena. So you have to learn a lot of these things and learn how to play the system in a way that you're not typically used to or what we learned in school. So having a guide, I think, is very helpful. And we appreciate the feedback. I wanted to touch on the AI piece. So my second question was regards to AI. You mentioned a lot of people don't get even their resumes seen or their applications seen. And I've seen that happen quite a bit. Can you explain a little bit more about that and then how to get your application through the process?
Yes, absolutely. So on the back end, if you are a candidate and you're applying, what you see is the description, where you can apply, how to put it in. On the back end, there is something called an applicant tracking system, which is also known as an ATS if you hear about it. And that is where a recruiter is logging into every single day. So basically, it is like our dashboard, if you think of it that way. Like I log in, I can see every job I have live, how many people have applied, when they applied. I can see everything. For the volume reason that I mentioned earlier, Kaylee, AI is now filtering out these applications so that recruiters don't have to.
Right.
Because I go in and I see 500 applications in there for just one job that I have posted, and I have multiple jobs open.
Right.
It's impossible to go through as a human. So what is happening is AI is filtering it out. And what they're doing is they are being taught to pull out the applications that have a certain amount of keywords. So
Wow.
they have keywords they're looking for, searching for, scanning for. You could be extremely qualified, but if you use a different synonym for a word that it's tracking for, but you did the same thing, it's going to filter you out because you didn't trigger for it. But it's also built to trigger for fraud and for fake applications.
Right.
So I've had real people put in applications where it's like the world of AI, but they used AI to make an application to match a job description, but it matched it with so many words that it was going through the system. AI was like, there's no way this person has done this many things so spot on to our job because that's just almost unrealistic.
Right.
It's not likely. So it will also filter that out and flag it as AI or a bot or a fake application because there's also a lot of fake candidates out there, which is
Right.
a whole nother thing, but it will be trained to filter those out. But by default, it accidentally filters out some real people sometimes if they're tailoring their resume and their application too much to the job. So you want to find this sweet spot. And my biggest recommendation, and this is where you can use AI in a positive way, is give AI your resume and the job description for the job you want
Mhm.
and ask it to only pull out 2 to 3 keywords or skills that it's finding our theme in there. Because it will be able to pull out patterns and it'll be like,
Right.
this keeps coming up in a different way. Like this is a key problem it's solving for. And ask it to give you 2 or 3. And then naturally, in a storytelling way with impacts and numbers, put that into your resume. And 2 to 3 is not going to trip up the system, but
Right.
it's gonna be enough where it can see that you've done the role because you're triggering these keywords and
Right.
you're being more likely to get passed through versus filtered out.
This is insane. I'm learning so much though. Thank you so much. This is great. And it's crazy because our listeners, I've had these questions pop up, whether they're friends of friends or connections or folks. And I think having you just articulate something that's so actionable and understandable is really helpful for the listeners and for folks to just grasp it because it can be very overwhelming.
In the job search, I always leave. It's still overwhelming. Like there's really clear tactics you can take that make you stand out in the market. And I think that's the positive of AI too, because the people who are understanding it early and learning how to navigate it are actually the candidates that end up getting on recruiters' radar quicker. So that's the positive, but it is still an overwhelming process and it's changing every day. And the
Yeah.
AI that we're using now could change in 2 months. Like it just is evolving so quickly, but it's helpful to just know what's going on
Yeah.
here from somebody who works within it and understand what you can do to sort of get past some of these firewalls, I would say, that are in the process now.
That makes a lot of sense to understand the mechanisms and to educate yourself on it. Then you know how to play the game. Like
Yes.
you're equipped with the rules. Cause I feel like what people don't have is like the rules of the game, like you would in sports. So this is helping us understand like, hey, what are the rules? What are the systems looking for? What are the recruiters looking for? So, Madison, I think our listeners would love to hear something relatable. Like, do you have a story of where networking worked and how did that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can use one from myself, honestly, Kaylee. So last year, I decided I wanted to make this goal for myself to just get involved in more communities in the HR and recruiting space. So I joined a Slack community that was really just tailored to HR and recruiting professionals. I'm going to give this with timestamps for how quickly good networking can work, but I joined it in mid March of 2025. And I noticed there was a lot of people in the Austin area that were in this Slack channel because it was all across the US. And I really wanted to meet some of those folks. So in the Austin chapter channel, introduced myself, said a little about who I was, what my role was, and that I really wanted to get together with everybody in person. Ended up getting seen by the lead person that built out that group. They were like, if you get enough volunteers, we'll make it an official sponsored event. It's like,
Wow.
awesome. Put that in there. And then this chief people officer commented, it was like, I'll help you plan this event. I also live in Austin. It's like, awesome. Would love to work with you on this. So we started chatting on the side about this Austin coffee meetup. Like that's how casual it was. It was going to be like 10 of us going to get coffee in downtown Austin. And then during the course of planning that, which was about a week or two, a role opened up at her company. And we started talking about that. And I was like, yeah, I'd be open to like a call. I thought it was going to be a 20-minute just discovery call. Ended up talking to her for over an hour.
Wow.
Really hit it off. She's like, I want to put you through the whole process. I got to skip some parts of the process because she was not the intro call. So I actually had a shorter recruiting process. Got to talk to the hiring manager for this role the very next day. And then 4 days later, did an on-site. By the end of that day, had a job offer. So I
Wow.
think in total, with the weekends in between, it was like 11 days from the time of us connecting to getting a job offer. If they ever asked for my resume or for me to apply. And that never would have happened without being in the group, but also posting and being active. And I think that's a huge part of it too. You can't just join these communities and then be a wallflower. Like you need to put yourself out there and be willing. But that little bit of interaction and connection ended up with a job offer in a recordly quick time that would have never happened with a cold application. And I
Wow.
can even say, I don't think my application or resume would have been seen by her or that company for that same role. So it's really impactful to just put yourself out there and join communities and network.
I love that story for many reasons. One of them being that Sarah and I have been chatting about how important visibility is. So when you talk about, you didn't even actually even apply for a job. You were applying to add value to a community. So like being helpful and being willing to put yourself out there. And then somehow that turned into a job in 10 days. So it's like, there's so many elements of that story that just show exactly what you're saying about how important networking is and how it's important to like add value on both sides versus just ask people for things. So it's the best story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. And it really ties into the beginning of networking should be about building relationships, not asking anybody for anything. That is really what networking is. And that's how you get it to work for you and not be something that's frustrating or you feel like you're getting ghosted. It's when you're building real relationships.
If you had any like last pieces of advice that you wanted to give the listeners just to kind of wrap up, what would those be?
Yeah, if I was trying to look for a job today, the best piece of advice I would say is spend 80% of your time on networking, spend 20% of your time on resumes, applications, everything else. That is what's going to move the needle. That is what's going to help you get a job. Don't spin your wheels over the resume. Don't get too hung up on how many applications you're sending. You want really strong, tailored applications where you're reaching out to people and you're focusing all your effort on networking. It might feel like you're not doing enough if you're not sending a ton of applications. And you're like, well, I haven't applied to that many jobs. That is okay. You want to network first so that they can be your referral. So that would be my biggest piece of advice is spend 80% of your time networking if you're looking for a job.
I love that. And I think hearing it from you can just help reiterate what we've also been saying to some of our listeners. Like I've watched some friends of mine or like family members also be like, I feel like I'm not doing enough. But then coming back to it, it's like you can feel like you're spinning your wheels if you're not making up applications, but you're actually adding more value or investing the hours in something that's going to have a higher rate of return if you're focusing on the networking versus just the button clicking.
100%. And it's less frustrating. You get to talk to real people versus just putting your application into the abyss and hope you hear back. So it's also a way more rewarding way to approach the job search, I think, personally.
And you've made this all very not so scary. So thank you for helping kind of dissect the process and the applications and networking and how important it is. So Madison, where can we find more about your company? Tell us a little bit about your Instagram handle and where followers can find you and interact with you and learn more about your services.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am very active on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Career Lab Collective. So I'm there. I post daily tips every single day. So I have everything there. There's also a link in my bio where you can actually find all the details about who I am, the services that I offer. And within that link, there are free digital resources. There's also some paid digital guides and resources to get you started if you just want to hit the ground running right away. And then also a link to work with me directly, where we really go through all of this and tailor everything that we talked about today, Kaylee, specifically for individuals so that they walk away with a really clear job search plan. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn, of course. I talked about it a ton, named Madison Little, but I am also very active on LinkedIn. So always happy to connect with people there as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Madison. And thank you for the very actionable feedback and advice for folks looking out there for jobs and in the networking. So share this with someone who's on their job search and connect with Madison.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Kaylee. This has been awesome.
Thanks for tuning in to the Career Capital Collective podcast with Sarah Robson and Kaylee Gaspari.
We hope you feel inspired and empowered to take charge of your career and build the life you truly want. Follow us on Instagram at Career Capital Collective.